Hey everybody, this is Chris and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be looking at another discussion topic in English from the IELTS test. And this time, we're talking about a person that you respect. So let's have a look at the original question from the IELTS exam together. And then we can go over an answer and some vocabulary together. Okay, so the question is this. Describe an old person you know and respect. You should say who he or she is, how you know this person, what he or she is like, and explain why you respect him or her. Okay, so let's have a look at a sample answer to this question. So you can read the answer on the screen, you can listen to me reading it out loud, and you can try to repeat it after me if you want to practice your speaking. My grandmother is someone I've always respected. Throughout my life, she's been a great inspiration, and I've always tried to live up to the high expectations she has for me. As the oldest person on my mother's side of the family, I think my cousins and I have always seen my grandmother as the head of the family and the wisest person we know. From my earliest memories, I can remember my grandmother playing an important role in my upbringing. When we were very little, it was my grandmother who looked after us if both of my parents had to work. At this time, she was always strict if we misbehaved. She would never put up with any bad behavior. But my grandmother was also very generous and always supportive if we had any problems. Despite being in her 90s now, my grandmother is still very active. She will happily get on a bus or a train to travel across the country to visit relatives. As well as being independent, my grandmother is also a very determined person who knows her own mind. However, there is also a caring side to her character. My grandmother will always put family first and fight for what is right if she thinks one of her grandchildren is being treated unfairly. For me, the most impressive thing about my grandmother is how she has kept on going despite the hardships she experienced. She was born into a poor family at a time when women had very few opportunities. Her husband died when she was still young, and she had to raise 3 children all by herself. Another reason I hold my grandmother in such high esteem is that she always did what was right, even if that meant taking difficult decisions or missing out on money or opportunities. For these reasons and many more, I will always look up to my grandmother as an example of how to live. So in this question, we're talking about a person. We're describing what they're like and their character, and also the reasons why we think something. So let's have a look at some of the vocabulary and phrases that we can use in an answer like this when we're talking about old people. In some situations, it could be a little bit rude to call somebody an old person. So we could call them an elderly person. Elderly just means somebody who's a bit older. It's another way of saying old. A more polite way even than that could be to say that somebody is advanced in years. This means effectively that they're quite old. They've reached quite an old age. We can also say that somebody is from a different generation. So a father, a grandfather, and a son come from 3 different generations. This is a good word to use in a question like this. If somebody is a certain age, but you don't want to say exactly, you can say that they're in their 70s, their 80s, or their 90s. That means that they're 70, let's say 71, 70-something, or 81, or 91. If somebody is no longer working, you might describe them as retired. A lot of older people are retired. And they're very experienced as well. They've gained a lot of experience in their life, maybe from work and life experience. In some cultures, we have the concept of the head of the family. This is talking about the most important person in the family, perhaps the person who makes the decisions in the family. I don't know if you have this concept in your culture as well. So let's have a look at some other vocabulary that we could use. Sometimes we could say we aspire to be something, or we aspire to be like somebody. That means we respect them and we want to be like them. We could also say they are an inspiration. Maybe your grandmother or your mother is an inspiration to you. That means that they inspire you. You want to be like them and they encourage you. The third word is impressive. This means that you're impressed by the things that they've done. You think they're very good and you think that they have achieved a lot. You might admire the person. You have admiration for them. That means that you think they did a very good thing and you might be proud of them. So this is talking about how respectful you are of somebody. You could also say that you hold them in high esteem. So that means that you really respect them and you have a really positive opinion of them. In the passage, we also heard be an example to others. That means that somebody is setting a good example. You think that you should be like them and do what they do. Then we have some collocations related to people's lives. So sometimes you will take a decision to do something. For example, you take a decision to retire or change your job. This means just deciding to do something. Keep active. Some older people like to stay active. They like to do sports and exercise to remain healthy in their old age. What's the third one mean? Make a life. How can you make a life? Make a life basically means doing things in your life, like having a career and trying to live a good life. Another thing you might do is raise children. This means to bring up your children to help them to grow up. In the answer, we talked about somebody's upbringing. This means what they did when they were young, when they were a child. I said that my grandmother had hardship. Hardship just means hard things. She had a very hard life. I don't know if anybody in your family had an experience like that. Lastly, let's look at some phrasal verbs that you might use in a question like this. So phrasal verbs are used so much in everyday English, and it's useful to know some verbs like this. Bring up. Bring up means to raise your children, to guide your children as they grow up. So grow up means that you are getting older, but bring up means that you are looking after your children as they are growing up. So that's the difference between these two. Keep on means to continue to do something. You can keep on living, you can keep on being active into your old age. Look after means to care for somebody. You could look after an older person or look after a child, perhaps, if they were quite young. We also heard look up to. Look up to means that you admire someone. You are really proud of them, or you think that they set a good example for you. Another one you might want to use is miss out. This means that you do not have the opportunity to do something. Could be that you had a hard life, so you missed out on your education. You didn't have an education. So this is the meaning of miss out. You don't have the opportunity to do something. And the last one is put up with. So what does put up with mean? It means that you have to endure something. You have to go through something. It might be something that's not nice or something that you don't want to do, that you don't like, but you still have to deal with this thing. It means you have to put up with it. So if you have a problem in your life that you can't solve, sometimes you have to put up with it. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. You can understand these vocabulary items. Let me know if you like this kind of video or if there's too much information for you. I'd really like to know. And maybe we can read some more texts in English in other videos. We can do some more pronunciation practice, and I will have more content coming for you soon. So thanks for checking out this video, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day.